What is going on YouTube and Spotify? This is the Just BSN podcast, and today we have episode 69.
This is where
Almost
it ends.
at 70. Yeah, shut up. Episode 69. Lots to discuss as always. Lots of good stuff, lots of not so good stuff, lots of interesting stuff. And we got some good vibes coming in. So, Andrew, how are we feeling? I know we're kind of feeling a little bit under the weather over here, but we're doing it. We're here.
We're here. I mean, like you said, we're both kind of in the face, not feeling the greatest. But we're surviving. We're going to do this thing.
Absolutely.
And other than that, I feel pretty good.
I mean, how can you not feel good after Ohio State comes out with a W against Texas in a very hard-fought game, which we will discuss a little bit later. I want to save that for last because obviously that's the arguably the biggest game that we have within this year so far, even though it's only 16 days into the new year. So that's the joke. But there is some interesting stuff, and I'm going to just quickly get over these guys over here because there's more news. The new OC has been hired, which is not a new face at all. It is former tight end coach Tommy Rees, who was a former OC for not only Alabama with Nick Saban, but also Notre Dame, who is who we are playing on Monday night.
And a former QB of Notre Dame, too.
Point is, he has a ton of experience.
Absolutely.
He's very highly coveted. So he was the very first guy that the Browns interviewed for that particular position, and he was the favorite the whole way through from what I've come to understand about everything going on. And we heard and we saw that they had interviewed quite a few different guys. One of them was Clint Kubiak, which we knew was going to come at some point. I think he was one of the last ones before they decided. And I just think Stefanski knew. He's like, listen, if I don't keep him, he is going to go somewhere else. And there was a report that had they not hired Rees, he would have went straight to New England with Mike Vrabel. And you might see a few of our guys get poached from Vrabel, which is it's going to happen in this league. But it is what it is. And so I think Stefanski was just like, listen, I really like him. I really think he's going to do what I want us to do on offense. And he sees the vision. So, and I also think he just wants somebody that the players can truly appreciate and look up to and respect. I'm not sure how much the players truly respected Dorsey as the season progressed. Just due to what we've learned about everything that did happen with his lack of being able to sort of speak in front of the team and sort of have his own little personality, be able to try to collaborate with other sides of the ball. It just seemed like it just was not going to be a fit from the start, and it was clearly forced due to obviously Deshaun, which is unfortunate. But what do you think about the hire of Rees? We've come to kind of know him a little bit here over this week, as well as the new lineman coach. And so it seems like the two hires have been some pretty safe, but also some pretty solid choices, I think, out of Stefanski. And he clearly seems to have a vision for what he wants here.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing to remember, that this is all going to be Kevin Stefanski now. This is going to be what he wants on his staff. It's going to come down to, again, with the draft, who he wants as quarterback or who he wants to get. So a lot of this is going to be Kevin Stefanski based as the offseason progresses. I like the hire. I think Tommy Rees is a good hire. I know some people are upset because they're sitting there, well, why would you promote someone on a staff that was 3-14? I was like, last time I remember, it's not Tommy Rees's fault that we went 3-14. Right. And number two, tight end was probably the best position we had on the field.
Yeah.
So I think Tommy Rees did just fine because our best players were literally David Njoku and Jordan Akins were our best players at that point. So I think the tight ends were just fine. And I think Tommy Rees did a better job than what anyone could have done on that team. So I thought it was a great hire. Again, he fits what Kevin Stefanski wants to do with the wide zone scheme. And it seems like that's what the Browns are going to go back to. For those who don't know, that's what we ran when we first got Kevin Stefanski. The reason why we made the playoffs twice.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the roots, and I think that's the most important thing. And that's why they interviewed Tommy Reese, and that's also why they interviewed, because I think Clint Kubiak was the clear number 2 option if Reese was gone.
Yeah.
And that's why he went with those two as his basically main options. But when you have a guy you can keep in Tommy Reese, you don't want him to go away with a guy you just lost in Mike Vrabel, because then those guys are going to do very well.
Yeah.
And you have to keep him here because you lost Vrabel and you can't lose Reese as well.
Yeah.
So good hire by Kevin Stefanski for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we heard guys like Goldhammer trying to his comment about, you want to keep a guy who was just on this team and went 3-4, forward routine.
Yeah.
Just hearing Rizzo basically roast him and be like, what do you know? You're not a coach, you're not a player. What do you know? Shut up. Yeah. And I was surprised because Rizzo usually says stupid stuff as well. A lot of the ESPN Cleveland guys, except for a couple. There are some good guys there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the main heads that you hear a lot more on that show, I don't even care to really take their opinion seriously. Obviously, It's an opinion, so it really doesn't matter. But they're the ones that, when they speak, I generally don't really listen. And there's a reason for it.
And Goldhammer doesn't know anything about sports in general. Let's be real. He said Will Howard was trash in the middle of the Ohio State season. So
yeah,
I don't take anything he says for granted.
no, and he's been proven wrong so many times before. It's just, it is what it is. So
yeah, for sure.
But to kind of try to circle back to that though, that's not an excuse, because when you think about it, you're like, okay, well, you also ran it back with the supposed head coach and GM that also went 3-14, that also had a really bad year. And you saw the clip from Hard Knocks with Miles, and obviously AB took it kind of personally as well. He knows that he didn't perform up to par, and they do have a chance to redeem themselves, and that's the only reason that we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, is because they've done good things. But you are on sort of a shorter leash, and there's still, even me, I don't have full confidence in just him being the guy that makes these picks. I want him to bring in somebody else to help him scout and to help give him honest opinions about these guys. You need to continue to surround yourself with these people that have football knowledge, actual football knowledge, not just the smarts, not just the analytics. I know AB has some football smarts, but you got to trust your guys. You got to trust guys like Stefanski. You got to trust guys like, Schwartz. And you got to trust the guys that you put in the building. And you got to give them some power. And I think they're starting to give Stefanski what we've been asking for, which is, hey, he deserves a little more say in his staff and his players. I understand you want to collab, but at the same time, let the football guys do the football stuff.
Yeah.
It's that simple. That's what we say about Haslam as well. They're even the Jerry Joneses of the world, where let your football guys do the football stuff. Let you be the one to sign the checks or do the analytics and gather up the data that that you need to make these calculated picks. You got to get rid of guys like D. Podesta, though. Fuck him. But point is you have to let Stefanski have this say, because if he's going to go down, let him go down with the ship and let him go out his way. Don't let him go out because you guys needed a scapegoat, and that that was the result. Because we all know Stefanski is a good coach. Now, am I a little fearful after this Jason Lloyd story kicking him out?
Yeah,
a little bit. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over next before we hop into some Cavs and eventual OSU talk. Jason Lloyd put out a article yesterday on the Athletics. So if you are subscribed and you have not seen it, go ahead and view it. It was a great read. There was a lot to unpack. We're not going to unpack everything, but a lot of this is based on Watson and kind of what went wrong. And I sent you the tweet, and I'm gonna pull this up as well because again, there's quite a lot to unpack in this. So do you want to start anywhere? Because I don't even know where to start, but I think the main consensus after seeing this is, and I said this before we started recording, there's like a 0.0000001% chance that I see Watson ever stepping foot, even in Berea, ever again.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could just start from the beginning at this point.
Yeah.
Like literally the first page. For 3 years, the Browns contorted themselves to match Watson's strengths and desires, but teammates ultimately grew tired of the organization catering to an ineffective quarterback and never really fit in Cleveland. He received at least one death threat. As his Achilles tear leaves Watson's career in danger, the Browns can begin the painful process of officially moving on from the worst trade, pretty much in not just franchise history, but probably in NFL history. After the 23 season, Watson's season ended prematurely with a broken bone in his shoulder. Joe Flacco joined the Browns in December and obviously resurrected his career by throwing for 300 yards in 4 consecutive games, something Watson failed to do once in his 19 starts with the Browns. It was an embarrassing exposure to franchise quarterback. The problem was never the scheme. Flacco's performance during an 11-6 finish and a probable run to the playoffs earned him the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year. And merited another contract to remain in Cleveland as Watson's backup. You have to bring
it gets spicy.
Yeah, you have to bring Joe back. Somebody has to teach Deshaun the offense. One member of the organization said as the season neared its conclusion, Joe picked it up faster in 30 days than Watson had in 2 years. That's bizarre. Joe Flacco off the couch, flies on an airplane, comes to Cleveland, gets the offense 30 days. Watson couldn't learn it in 2 fucking years. It's pitiful, pathetic. This is the guy you paid $230 million guaranteed who couldn't learn an offense, or was it could he not learn it, or did he not want to learn it?
I think it's more so that than anything. And I don't know if this part of the story is in this tweet, but there was a part of the story where they pretty much said when they went in on the original meeting with Watson and said, hey, this is our offense. I think you can do great things in this offense. This is the scheme. This is what we can do with you in this offense. It could be awesome. And Watson was saying, yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And truthfully, when you look at it now, he was probably saying that because there was a $230 million guaranteed contract behind him.
Yeah.
But he was saying all of the right things. And then the minute he got into the building, he pretty much said, yeah, no, that's not what I want to do.
Yep.
And that, I think, is more so why he's just kind of looked meh. Like he hasn't looked aggressive. He hasn't looked committed at all to what he's doing in games. And you can just tell that he was carrying just all of this just random weight and things of that nature. And I know there is a quote in this later on, but the other point here, which I'm on right now, is players did believe that Bill Callahan would have stayed if we would have kept AVP. And that's, I mean, we had so many struggles on the O-line. We obviously didn't keep Andy Dickerson because of that reason. Bill Callahan joined his son, which is a great story and, awesome. But had AVP would have stuck, Bill Callahan would have probably stayed too.
Yeah.
And we would have at least had some leadership in there. We didn't have that on the O-line besides Vrabel. Vrabel was the one doing that apparently this year, which we've known already. But all of these changes were a fucking disaster from the start. And then when Dorsey was supposed to deliver this type of offense that Watson wanted with these choice routes and all of these shotgun formations and a lot more freedom, none of it fucking worked. And part of it was just because, again, Watson didn't look like the quarterback that he wanted to do. And then he went over the Dallas game, saying how he was throwing guys sailing balls 5 yards over their heads. In the Giants game, they brought up the infamous Akins was a decoy, and that's why he was open. And one player literally said after that, he said, "We all saw the same things. We all watch film. Guys are open." We all and we all knew this because we were complaining about this from day one, especially that Dallas game. I don't know if you recalled everything, but like he really was sailing balls 5 to 10 yards out of bounds. He was overthrowing or underthrowing guys by a lot.
Oh yeah,
And it looked dreadful. It looked terrible.
Yeah, it was awful.
And this is where I started getting scared about Stefanski in this part. This is the big part that I want to share, and then we just kind of rant for a little bit, and then we'll move on. But according to multiple players, these mistakes that Watson was making were not being pointed out in film sessions, frustrating at least a few vets who believe Stefanski wouldn't criticize him in front of the team. But as soon as Jameis Winston replaced Watson after he tore his Achilles, players said Stefanski returned to pointing out the quarterback's mistakes in film sessions. Mm-hmm. Off the field, Watson spent a year dealing with the traumatic, matters. Apparently, he did receive a death threat, which was confirmed by some sort of police report that the Athletic obtained. And as I said before on air, that's scary and that's awful. And I never want people to like actually deal with that. Cause because you got to think about even like Ryan Day. I saw a thing with Jack Sora's story, which was fucking awesome too. If you guys haven't read that, read that before the OSU game. You will want to run through a fucking brick wall. It's so awesome. One of the best reads I've seen all in 2 or 3 seasons now. But he shared a thing where, not only was Ryan Day getting threats and stuff from the fact that he lost to, that team up north, like we all were. We were all frustrated. We all wanted him fired at that time. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But he had to pull his kids out of school because students and even teachers were giving his kids shit about it. Like, how fucking sad.
It's crazy, man.
It's not even the guy. You were messing with the kids. As a teacher, you are saying stuff to those kids. That is, oh my goodness. That's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's the worst thing. Like I understand that coaches can get it wrong. And I understand the players' frustration too with Kevin Stefanski not calling out Watson. But let's be honest here. We all know that it was probably Jimmy Haslam that told him, hey, when you go into these film sessions, don't call out Watson. We don't want him to feel bad. Don't call him out. And I get it. Watson was getting all these threats. Obviously threats like that, death threats or whatever, are never warranted.
No.
Like, please stop doing that. Like, we all understand you're a 400-pound couch fucking potato who thinks he can do anything and can do better. Let's be realistic. You wouldn't even get off the couch to get a bag of fucking potato chips. So please shut the hell up. Right. Does Watson deserve criticism? Sure, absolutely. Yeah. He doesn't deserve death threats to him and his family, his girlfriend, whatever. It's the same with Ryan Day, where his kids can't even go to fucking school because everyone's harassing the kid at school.
Yeah.
Teachers. Teachers too.
Teachers were saying stuff to those kids. I was like, that's where I'm getting the school board involved and saying, listen, I understand people of all nature are says that with me. These kids should not be treated as such just because of something that I am responsible for.
Yeah.
Don't put that on them. Put that on me. But yeah, to go to your point, yes. Should he be criticized for his play? Yes. For his off the field issues. Yeah. I mean, listen, unfortunately, when you have that much baggage behind you, there are going to be, instances where you're going to probably be having some sort of death threats or just people saying it's really messed up stuff to you. And it's scary and it's sad, but unfortunately it's kind of the reality of his overall situation. And I feel bad, but I'm not like, I get what's going on, and it's
Yeah.
sad, but it's fucked up at the same time. But
It's
yeah,
terrible.
to go back to the Stefanski thing though, um, that really troubled me, and I hope he doesn't lose the locker room because of that. And then the last thing that I wanted to share all about this article as well, and sort of the final thing, was a lot of the players told him, as in Jason Lloyd, that there was a constant heaviness surrounding Watson in the locker room, and that they felt a different energy in the building upon his departure after his Achilles injury in October. A couple of veterans even told him it felt like a cloud had been lifted. And I don't know about you, but I noticed that. Like I noticed the difference in their attitudes at press conferences. Um, obviously Winston has a much more positive vibe to him. I know people can love or hate him as a player, but as a person and as a teammate, dude, Winston's got to be up that at the top. And he was the perfect guy to kind of help them get back into the flow of just being football players again.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that they had him, because had they not, it would have been so much worse. It would have been terrible. But yeah, dude, Watson always carried this like weird dark cloud over him, and he always talks about his faith and all this stuff. And I don't know how true he is to it, because he really does have a lot of dark energy and a lot of dark clouds above him. It seems like he's carrying a lot, and I get it. He's had a troubled few years,
Yeah.
but he's put that on himself, and I'm not going to be sorry for that. I just can't. You have more lawsuits than you do touchdowns in the last 3 years. That's reality, man. That like that's not even me being a dick. That's literally a fucking reality. You can't stay on the field for more than not even half of a season without getting hurt. You're made out of glass. You just tore your Achilles again when you were supposed to be wearing a boot and you didn't. You're putting this on yourself. You are doing this to yourself, and you want to have a scapegoat for everything. And I think the Browns, after hearing all this, I think players, especially, they're just done with it. They're like, I want to go back to just playing football and being a part of this awesome team, because they have good players. And even what you heard from Ward today on TMZ, which was a weird, that was a funny, out of all players to run into, Ward was probably the best one, because he's not a negative guy at all. So
No,
when
not at
they
all.
asked, what do you think you guys should do? He's like, well, obviously we need to address the quarterback. He's like, that's the biggest, the most prominent position in the league, and that's what they need. But he was still positive about it. He wasn't like slandering anybody or saying anything bad. So it was funny. But it's true. Players, I think, are just ready to move on. And I think the players have made that known in some of their closing meetings with the Browns. And I think the Browns have just kind of faced reality. And listen, if we can find a way to void his guarantees and stuff, you want to talk about believing in God and being able to kind of be like, thank you. That's the one that would make anybody believe at this point. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got on the Browns. I know the story was the biggest thing, obviously, but
Yeah.
man, dude, when you saw all that, I was like, oh, this is kind of a low-key bombshell. Like, this is a lot to unpack. So again, if you guys want to go read it, it's on The Athletic. I know you got to pay for it. I think it's like 80 cents a week or something. It's really not that bad, but great read by by Lloyd. I really do like most of the stuff he says, and I do agree with a lot of the information that he does give out. I think he's a damn good reporter. He's one of the least biased ones, in my opinion. He's pretty fair, and he's pretty brutally honest, and that I can appreciate as somebody who went to journalism school, who did all that. I get how it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to sort of find a bias or a lane you want to stay in, and really hasn't done that. So great read by him. Go view it. it was awesome. But it's pretty much all I got on the Brownies. Do you got anything else from that article?
No, I think it was pretty plain and clear of what the article spoke to. It's just everyone wasn't on the same page about Watson. Everyone wanted him gone. Nobody wanted him around, and I mean, it showed all throughout the season that nobody wanted him here. And I think now that he's got injured again, it's game over. I mean, he's done. Also, just a little game break. The Cavs are down 37-14.
Whoo! Rough right now.
And Kenny Atkinson just got teed up.
So clearly, I mean, they're in Oklahoma City, so I get
it. The Cavs are not getting calls at all.
Yeah. I mean, they're not really hitting shots either.
So Evan Mobley, they had a jump ball, and they called a jump ball as they were mobbing Evan Mobley. And I mean, like, Evan Mobley had the ball clear in his one hand, and then like they had 4 Thunder players like literally pulling his arms and grabbing him and holding him, and like, and instead of calling a foul, they called jump ball. And none of the Thunder players even touched the ball in that entire sequence.
Well, I will say though, that's the type of ball that those guys play.
Yeah.
So you can't really be mad,
Oh,
and
no.
you really can't get too teed up about it. So hopefully the Cavs can kind of get themselves back in a flow, because they're just not shooting the ball well at all right now.
And there's also the reason why the technical foul happened was because Mobley went up for a shot, he got blocked, and the ball went straight out of bounds from the block, but they called it out of bounds on Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you get blocked and it's somehow out of bounds on me? Like, it was just a straight up normal block, and it's like, okay, how's this? And so Kenny Atkinson, like, damn near like elbowed the ref.
Yeah.
And was like trying to fight the ref and whatever. But yeah, things aren't going to Cavs' way. Like you said, shots aren't falling. They're turning the ball over like crazy. So they need to find a way to get some stops and get some quick buckets to kind of come back into this game. But OKC are not missing a shot.
No. Especially Shia, who I would say he's probably the leader for MVP right now.
Yeah, Shea.
He's been just going off. I mean, just respect to him. OKC is a tough team. And the Cavs aren't really shooting the ball the best the last few games. They won their last game against the Pacers, but before that they got beat by them as well, ending their 12-game streak after beating OKC. Like my last notes from our last podcast was also during the last OKC game. So it's kind of funny that we go over that game and then now we're into the next OKC game. But yeah, man, they're a tough team at home. They play really, really, really tough defense. They're a very physical team. So they have to be prepared for it. This will be a good test. So whether they win or lose tonight, again, I'm not too worried. The guys just aren't shooting the ball well. It's going to happen. But you just want to see guys like Donovan be a little more consistent, and it just seems like he's starting to force some shots. I think he needs to get back to passing the ball a little bit more, and the Cavs in general, I think, need to get back into that flow, because sometimes they get too into wanting to play iso ball, especially at the end of that last game a few nights ago. Garland and Donovan were doing that, and they were throwing the ball away. And I'm like, dude, you guys got to fucking stop that. Like you're just getting yourselves into bad situations, and it's not going to go well. So hopefully the Cavs can come back. Hopefully Garland and Mobley can continue to be clutch, but there's not really too much to go over there. So I don't know. You just want to go straight into OSU for the last half hour or so?
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk some Ohio State football for the last half an hour.
So yes, sir. So yeah, obviously Ohio State did it. They beat Texas. That was a very good game.
Yeah.
By the way, but I did call at least one thing. I said we were going to win by double digits. Obviously, it was a little skewed because at the very end. Mm-hmm. But Ohio State came and took care of business. They didn't look as dominant as they did the first 2 games in this playoff. But I think it was a really, really, really good test for them to be tested and say, how do you respond? And they responded very well quite a few different times. Um, I don't think people, obviously people are going to talk a lot about the Jack Sawyer, obviously that was honestly, one of the biggest plays in OSU history. But that screen pass right before halftime was probably even a bigger play, in my opinion, because Texas had just scored. You had not even 30 seconds left on the clock. And you call up a gem of a screen pass. You knew that they were going to bring a blitz, and you also knew that they were going to play their guys back. And so it gave you an advantage. They only brought 4 guys. I think they had 3 down linemen, and then they brought a linebacker. So it gave already an advantage for our linemen to go out for that screen pass.
Yeah.
And as soon as they got them out, the minute that they got him past that first down marker, Henderson did the rest. And that's what he's done all year long. I've been calling him the home run hitter because he really is. Like, all he does is hit home runs, man. He always has those massive plays, and you're going to need him to do that again. But they also need to get Jeremiah Smith back into the flow of things because he did not have a impressive game, obviously, but he also had 3 guys on him the entire game. And I credit the Longhorns and the way that they decided to defend him. But as we said quite a few times, and I even said this on the TikTok video, when you do that, who else are you going to cover then? Because you still got Ibuka. Carnell Tate had a fantastic game, which we both, I think, called.
Yeah.
We knew that he was going to have a better game because we thought that they were going to defend Jeremiah Smith a little more. I still expected Smith to have somewhat of an impact, but he had 1 catch for 3 yards. And that's all he did.
Yeah.
It was the run game, and it was Will Howard willing us to that game. And obviously Jack Sawyer with, again, the biggest play of the entire game. What are your thoughts on the way that game played out? And I also want to remind people too, the last time that we were in the college football national championship was in 2015. 10 years ago was the last time we were in the playoffs. Now we are back in it, and we're facing Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, what I saw of the game, I mean, it was pretty much a lot of what we said would happen. And I mean, we knew we had to rely on the run game quite a bit because we knew that they're going to try and lock up Jeremiah Smith as much as possible, which they did. And we knew that guys like Judkins and Trayvon Henderson had to get going in order to help us at least free up the passing game just a little bit. And it worked. I mean, like you said, that dump off screen at the end of the half looked amazing, and we all knew they were going to run a blitz. They're going to sit back a little bit with their linebackers and safeties, and they freed up Henderson, and he ran for 78 yards. And I think that really gave a big boost, especially too for him, because obviously he got that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty before, and it kind of really drugged the team down. And that kind of redeemed him a little bit. And then you saw Judkins get going. He started making some good runs. Again, you saw Henderson making some good runs. I mean, both finished under 50 yards, but they were still impactful in every way. I mean, Henderson had the 1 catch for 75 yards and a touchdown. But a lot of it was just Will Howard just being calm and content and actually just playing a decent game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really settled it. And especially to the defense. I mean, the defense did everything in that game.
Oh, yeah.
They had to. They had no choice. And it's going to, in the same way now, I will say, I don't think Notre Dame's defense is better than Texas, because last time I checked, we were number 1 in defense. Texas was 3, and I think Notre Dame was like 10 or 11. So but I know they still have I think they have better DBs. I think they're a good pass defending team.
Yeah.
So it could be the same kind of game plan. It could be we're going to go run heavy for a lot of it. Um, I think the one thing that scared me a little bit too was when we first started the game, at least for the first quarter, it looked like we went back to the conservative play style like we did against Michigan.
Yeah.
And that frustrated me a lot because I was sitting there looking at, Chip Kelly, like, really, we're going to do this again? Just run, halfback dives up the middle every fucking play.
Yeah.
We're really going to keep doing this again? After the first 2 playoff games, you were finding Smith deep on insane deep balls and you're airing it out and you're taking chances. Now you're going to go back to that conservative ass playbook again.
Yeah.
So and for this game against Notre Dame, it's going to have to be the same way we said for all 3 games. You got to start fast. Go out, get that early touchdown. And you, instead of going back to that conservative playbook, Chip Kelly's got to start off again, just try to take maybe a shot or 2 downfield. See if you can't find Jeremiah Smith or Buka or Carnell Tate up the middle. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of game plan we run on Monday and what we do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I think that first off, I think Chip Kelly is going to pull everything out of his hat here.
He has to.
Anything that he didn't run, he's going to pull out and say, guys, we're going to pull out every string. But you also have to accept that Notre Dame's going to do the same damn thing. At the end of the day, you're in the national championship game. You're doing everything you can to win. And honestly, this is a pretty evenly matched defensive game.
Mm-hmm.
Both defenses are really, really good. I will say we've faced a lot better competition, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the one upside that I don't think a lot of people are really discussing. So obviously, Notre Dame is pretty well known for their pass coverage and their passing defense. Penn State ran the shit out of the ball on them last game.
Yeah.
And I think Ohio State can really take note of that and really put it to them and say, hey, we're going to run the ball. And we're not going to be sorry for doing so.
Yeah.
And so I'm just excited to see all that Chip Kelly does. But again, as you said from Will Howard, dude, like even them using Will Howard in the run game there, especially at the end, like that last drive was also gigantic. That was one of the longest drives I think Ohio State has put together all season long because they haven't really had to. It was like a 7.5 minute drive. It took 13 plays. And they literally drove down the field. And dude, that quarterback counter that they rung, or actually I think was a power, one of the two. Yeah. I mean, had he not tripped over the turf monster, he would have scored on that play alone. But it set up the fact that we were able to take more time off, and it actually helped us. And then Texas goes and drives down, and as I said in the TikTok, I thought Texas was going to score. I was 100% literally sitting in front of the TV going, all right, they're going to score, but we still going to have about 3.5 to 4 minutes left on the clock. That's plenty of time for us. It'll be tied by then, so we can play for the field goal, or we can try to get this clock locked down and run it in, at the end and win in walk-off fashion. And, especially after the 2 PIs, dude, back to back, I'm like, fuck, they're on the 2-yard line. Like, this is going to suck. And then that first run, they stuff them up the middle. It's like, all right, cool, great. Then they do that sweep. And when we sniffed out that sweep, when Caleb Downs sniffed that out immediately, it initially stopped him, followed up with Ransom, and then Iggy to follow up to stop them at the 8-yard line. As soon as they got there, I was like, all right, we got ourselves a goal line stand starting. And then third down, he obviously whiffs over him. The defender really locked down. And then, of course, the biggest play of the game, the biggest play probably in Ohio State's history, Jack Sawyer strip sack goes 92 yards to the house. And let me also say, Jack Sawyer, I love you, dude. That was one of the slowest
Oh
touchdowns
God,
I've
yeah.
ever watched in my entire life. But hey, he's a big boy. I'm so happy that out of all people to do that, it was Jack Sawyer.
Yeah.
And I've been saying this for a while now. He's becoming one of my favorite Ohio State players, at least for probably this team, but maybe top 5 ever for me,
Yeah.
just in terms of his personality. Like, he's literally the most authentic Buckeye player you can possibly imagine. He's from Columbus. He was a 5-star recruit. His dad literally said, "Hey, let's wait to see what else we got." And that night, he calls Ryan Davis, like, "I don't care what happens. I'm coming to Ohio State." He was one of Ryan Day's first official commits. So it all comes full fucking circle. And just for him to have the game that he's having the playoff that he's having, his
Yeah.
draft, like as we said last week, his draft stock going up. JT's is going up. Everybody's just going up right now because of the way they're playing. And I love hearing everything from the Team Up North fans, like, "Oh, well, you guys didn't beat us." And it's like that meme that I shared on my Facebook of the little stick fig, like the stick figure
Oh
guys,
yeah.
and
The thumbs
he's
up.
like, "Hey, we beat you," and he's like, and then just back to it, and it's like, we don't care. Like, it with the 12-man team, playoff, you don't have to win those games anymore. They just
They're
honestly,
useless.
they're useless now, and I'm starting to kind of come to grips with that. But also, Michigan, you're gonna lose to us again eventually, and you're gonna come back down to normalcy and poverty, because Ryan Day is one of the best recruiters in the nation, and I don't think many people can really argue that. You can argue kind of who he is as a head coach in certain moments, but the players love him. Like, the players, Will Howard literally said this week, he's like, "The only thing that I wish or that I regret is that I didn't have enough time with Ryan Day." He's like, "I love this coach. He's been freaking awesome for me. Best coach I've had, blah, 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 blah." He's like, "I wish I would have been here, longer."
Yeah.
And a lot of the players say that. So you have to take that to account every time you think about, hey, do you want to move on for Brian Day? And I'm glad we haven't. And I'm glad he's proven me wrong, because I like that. I want you to prove me wrong. Like, I want that to happen. And now you have a chance, the biggest stage, the biggest game ever. I'm so happy. And also, I have a shit ton of Fighting Irish fans that are friends of mine. So I'm going to have the best weekend of just constantly trying to mess with them and just
Same.
poke fun. And then on Monday, "Hey, you ready for the game yet? You ready? You get a little nervous?" So, so am I, because I have a lot of respect for Notre Dame. They're a great program. Marcus Freeman has done an outstanding job there, to the point where he could possibly get a gig in the NFL
I
at
think he
some
had an
point.
interview already.
Yeah, with Chicago, I think.
Yeah, I think he interviewed with Chicago.
Either that, or it was Chicago wanted to, and when they couldn't or something. I can't remember, but either way, he's done a fantastic job there, and it's just going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be kind of like the game last week, where it's going to be close all the way through the end. But I also won't be surprised if Ohio State does expose the Irish just a little bit, because, again, as I said earlier, I think we've played a little bit better competition in certain ways. I don't think Notre Dame has really gone up against like a true powerhouse of a team yet. Obviously Penn State was good, but we've beaten Penn State. We know what you can do to Drew Aller when you get to him, when you cause him to make mistakes. Riley Leonard isn't an amazing quarterback. He's all right. He's more of a runner guy, but he passed a good bit against Penn State, and they ran the ball somewhat well, but not that great. Again, they have not played a defense like us, man.
No.
The way that this defense is playing, how confident these guys are. I just don't. When they play this way again, it's impossible to not pick Ohio State here almost every time.
Yeah, no. Like you said, I also have, because obviously I went to a school in Indiana for college, so about 99% of my friends were all Notre Dame fans. So I've been talking with them all week, and we've been hyping each other up for this game coming up on Monday, and asking each other, "Hey, you ready for this game on Monday? You excited for this game on Monday?" and stuff like that. We've already been trash talking each other. I have a group message with some of them, and we're all trash talking each other as the lone Buckeye here. But no, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a fun one. Like you said, I don't think Notre Dame has really faced too difficult of competition throughout the year, and they haven't really faced a true defense. Actually, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to take a look at their schedule just to kind of like list off like who they've actually played all season.
I've seen it. I don't remember everything, but they haven't played the greatest teams.
Yeah, Texas A&M first game of the season. Then they lost to Northern Illinois, then Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Louisville, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, and USC. So yeah, a lot of the teams that are not good defensively. They lost to the 7th worst MAC team in the MAC conference.
Yeah.
In Northern Illinois, which I thought was absolutely hysterical. But yeah, they haven't really faced true competition. Now don't get me wrong, they played good teams in the postseason. But again, you played Indiana, who we all knew were kind of frauds. Because whatever his name is, Cigarello, I almost called him Cigarello.
Yeah.
But he's not that great of a head coach. And Indiana's not that great of a football team because again, they played nobody. Georgia, they didn't have Carson Beck.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a wash. And then Penn State's probably the only real team that they played. And they struggled a lot during that game.
Yeah.
So it gives me a little bit more confidence than I had going into the Texas-Oregon game. Because we went around and we played the best defenses. Not just throughout the postseason, but throughout the regular season too.
Wow.
And Ohio State's seen it all. So we've come to terms that we've played some of the top, not just the top teams, but the top defenses in the league, in the NCAA.
Yeah. And
it makes me not really, like I said, it makes me not really worried about this game. Like, no. I know I had some fears against Texas and again, Oregon, because again, they have top defenses. Their offenses are also pretty good. So the thing is, and what also helps me not be so scared of Notre Dame is that Riley Leonard is not that good of a quarterback.
No.
He's who is it from Michigan, that Origi guy who can't throw the ball more than like 5 yards, but he can run it like really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's Riley Leonard. He could run it really well. He can't throw to save his life.
Yeah. So, I mean, so here, I have the stats for this game right now, for the game last week. Riley Leonard went 15 of 23 for 223 yards, almost a 10-yard average, 1 touchdown, 2 picks with an 80 QBR. The run game was really what did well for them. They ran for 117 yards total. Both of their running backs scored. Well, actually, the running back scored and Riley scored. So that's what happened. But here's where Penn State happened, okay? Penn State, between Singleton and Allen, who are both going to return. By the way, I thought that was in fucking insane.
Yeah.
So obviously Drew Aller went 12 at 23 and 135 yards, 1 pick. Played horrible. Like that was a pretty bad game. He did not record a single pass to any of his receivers. It was all his running backs and his tight end. His tight end had a fucking game. But the running backs, Nicholas Singleton had 3 touchdowns, 15 carries, 84 yards. Allen had 19 carries, 82 yards. Warren had 2 rushes for 21 yards, and Drew Aller had 17 yards on 6 carries. They ran for over 200 yards against Notre Dame in total. And those 2 running backs are great and all. They are not what we have. They are not what we have. We have a better O-line as well, I think. I think they're playing outstanding. Again, they're going to be physical. They're going to play you hard. Notre Dame is going to play man on us as well.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. If you're going to play man against us, you're going to have a tough time against Jeremiah Smith. I'm telling you right now, man is not the way to go. It's going to be a rough game for them. So it's just the craziest part about this is the seeding is 7 versus 8. That is just the funniest part about this 12-man playoff.
And that's the thing too. It just shows that like the conference championships and stuff almost mean nothing anymore.
No,
because you're looking at that and it's like, are you really sending the best team into the college football playoff? And you look at like Ohio State. We all knew Ohio State was the best team in the Big Ten. Like, don't get me wrong, Oregon is great and they're very, very good. I will never take anything away from Oregon.
Yeah,
but we knew with how they were playing. Or how Ohio State was playing. We knew Ohio State was the number 1 team in the Big Ten.
And plus, we fucking had him at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We weren't playing the same as we are now. We're 2 totally different teams.
Mm-hmm.
Or Oregon was really much the same team. Like they were overshadowed by a lot of lucky games and just the way that the ball bounced for them. But yeah, I just think we've had the better resume here. Truly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think we've had the better resume. Again, we've played the better teams. We played we just played the better overall games, the defenses, whatever you want to say. So again, it makes me a little bit more confident going to play Notre Dame. I think every time we've played Notre Dame since like the 80s, we've beaten them. Right. I don't think we've lost to Notre Dame since before the 80s. I saw something in that, and I don't remember if that was bowl games or if that was just in general. I think this was just in general because it showed 22 and 23. So, yeah, Notre Dame hasn't beaten us in a very, very long time.
Yeah,
and we've had their number. We always will. And again, I don't feel like scared or nervous about going into this. Yeah. I just have like this thing. It's like, is it going to be a closer game than we think?
Or is it going to be like a blowout, like when Alabama beat us, or like our ass a few years ago than Natty? Because it can go one of 2 ways there. It really can. I totally agree with that.
Because that's what I mean. It's like, is it going to be like close, or is it going to be like us versus like Tennessee or something, or it's like over in the first 10 minutes of the fucking football game?
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, well, this was just nothing.
I just think Ohio State has a lot more of a chip on their shoulder, on their shoulder still, and I think they're just more, they're more willing to just lay it all out there.
Yeah.
I think they're just the most motivated team that you could possibly have in the Natty, and I just hope that Ryan Day continues to coach his ass off and just continue to have these guys constantly believe that they have it in them. And dude, I'm excited for Monday. So
me too. I am too.
The way that I want to end this here, we will be live streaming this game on Monday.
Yep.
Kickoff, I believe, is 7:30. So we will be live pretty much around like 7:15 or so, just to kind of, chill for a little bit. And then, we're going to lock in. I know it's going to be obviously on a Monday night. So it's going to suck for everybody. And I'm probably going to go into work tired on Tuesday, but I don't care because I want to watch this game. I want to live stream it, and I want to hang with as many people as we can. So, we're going to do the live stream. It's going to be fun. Tune in with us on Monday if you are also ready for this. Do we want to end with just divisional round? Just prediction real fast.
Yeah, I'm down.
Might as well. All right, cool.
Yeah, let me go pull it up.
Not too much to go off of. There's some much better games this week than last week. I thought some of the last week's games were, they were so bad I didn't put a single bet down on any of the games except for the last one, and even then I didn't really do well with those.
I actually had a couple bets that hit because I bet on every game, and I had some that hit.
Yeah,
I hit on every single game except for one game.
I just didn't have a lot of confidence in my bets, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna play it safe. But I also didn't really watch a lot of the games. A lot of them were boring this past weekend. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Besides the Washington game, that was a great pick by you to pick Washington there.
Dude, I just knew Baker too well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We're Browns fans, man. We know Baker all too well.
Yeah, we know him by heart, unfortunately.
Yeah. So here we go, the divisional round. This is
Here
where
we go.
This is where the games actually get really good.
Yes.
So we start off with Saturday, man. We got the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think Houston is gonna make this game very fun and interesting, and like I'm rooting for Houston, but Kansas City at home, the refs are gonna be on their side. They had apparently they have a ref for this game they're like 6-0 in games when he refs their games. So Kansas City's probably gonna win this game because of the refs. But I am rooting for Houston, but I'm gonna go Kansas City.
Yeah, I think everyone's rooting for Houston. But I have to go with Kansas City because even though they have had like a whole month off, they have the refs on their side, obviously.
All right.
And I just don't know too much about Houston at this point because they're so inconsistent. They're either really good or they're just really bad.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of inconsistencies going on right now, which kind of scare me a little bit. So that's why I'm going with Kansas City.
Yeah.
Washington versus Detroit.
I know you like Washington, man, but it's Detroit at home. Obviously, I'm rooting for Detroit to make the Super Bowl. They just got Montgomery back, which is going to be big for them. I think Detroit's going to come in ready to fucking go. And I think Washington is going to start to feel a little bit of that pressure that they should have felt in Tampa Bay, but they didn't because Baker is who he is.
Yeah.
But Detroit all the way.
Yeah, I'm going with Detroit as well.
Which is surprising.
Well, the reason why I'm going with Detroit and not Washington is for the fact that I am realistic. I also had Detroit as my Super Bowl pick early on in the year when we first started doing these and whatever. Detroit was my Super Bowl team. So I'm gonna ride with them until the Super Bowl. It should be easy for them in this game. I think this is a game where it's gonna be again where they win 35 to 16 or something, where they kind of just start blowing them out. But yeah, I know I like Jaden Daniels and Washington a lot, but
they have a very bright future.
They do. They have a great future.
I think they're a few pieces away from being really fucking good.
Yeah. If they can get those pieces, they're going to be absolutely nuts. So Washington fans should have something to be happy about.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Detroit for me all the way into the Super Bowl. Sunday, we have the first game being LA versus Philly in Philly.
This is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go as an upset. I don't think the Eagles really played that well. Jalen Hurts, sometimes he plays weird. And also, it's probably cold as fuck in Philly. So it's going to end up being a running game, which does favor Philly. But just for funsies, since we're not really trying to keep track of these, I love the Rams. I've always been a Stafford fan. I'm going to pick the Rams. I think they're sneaky.
Yeah, I joining you in the Rams. I think they're a very sneaky team. Like you said, it might be cold and it might be a run-heavy game, but I just don't think Jalen Hurts is that guy. I don't think he is that guy in big moments. I mean, when A.J. Brown's on the bench reading a book, something's not going right.
Yeah.
Like something is happening, and I don't like the look of I didn't like the looks of that, so it started to make me pull away from Philly a little bit. So I'm going to go with the Rams because at least they're not upset with their quarterback and going on the bench and reading books.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the upset as well, just to join you in that regard.
And before we move on, I want to say, because of the AJ Brown stuff, do not be surprised if he ends up in New England.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Vrabel is going to be aggressive over there. They
He's gonna bring
definitely
him
need
back.
a receiver. What better type of receiver to give Drake May than one of the more dominant ones in the league right now?
Yeah. And then that's
Just
a
saying.
nice little reunion of Mike Vrabel and
Exactly.
AJ Brown.
Exactly. He was pissed when he got traded. Might
Get
as
him
well
right
go
back.
get him back.
Yeah. And then the last matchup,
The best game, I think.
I was gonna say the best game I think too is the Ravens and Bills.
This is a tough one because this is going to be a run game, and if this is going to be a run game, it's probably going to favor Baltimore. But let's see what type of Lamar shows up for this game. Does playoff Lamar show up, or is like this year's Lamar going to show up? Because if that happens, the Ravens will win this game. But dude, I love Josh Allen. I love the Bills this year. They're a fun team to watch. They played pretty well last week, obviously, because they had a pretty easy game to play against what was it, the Broncos they played.
Yeah.
Super easy. James Cook had a pretty solid game as well. I just think when you're in Buffalo like that, it's a very tough place to go play in, and it's like going to Kansas City. It's just a tough place. So I know the Ravens are technically favored in this game. I don't care. I'm going Bills.
I'm going with the Bills too. As far as I know, the weather is supposed to be cloudy and cold. It's supposed to be like 13 degrees. And then the night before, it's supposed to be snowing all day and all night, the night on Saturday. So it's going to be a snowy game. It's going to be a lot of crap on the field, probably. But I'm going with the Bills just for the fact that they're at home. They're the only team in the entire league that beat Kansas City. They beat KC at home in Buffalo. And I just think that Buffalo has built a fortress there. I think it feels like they're almost unbeatable at home. Mm-hmm. And again, like you said, I think the inconsistencies with Lamar Jackson and the playoffs, because again, as we talked earlier in the podcast, you have those guys who are types of quarterbacks who can get you all the way. And then there's quarterbacks who are just good in the regular season. And then once they get to the playoffs, they just kind of like fade. And for Lamar's whole career, he's been that type of QB where he's great all regular season, but once he gets to the postseason, he kind of just like has a massive drop off and just fades away.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest worry for me for Ravens and probably Ravens fans too. And I'm sure Ravens fans are thinking about that too in the back of their minds. Like, we have to, like, in order for us to even make a Super Bowl, Lamar has to show up. Yeah. And if Lamar doesn't, it doesn't matter what Derrick Henry does, because Derrick Henry can't single-handedly win us this game. So for me, I have to go with Buffalo just for the fact that Lamar's always inconsistent in the playoffs. And this game's in Buffalo, and Buffalo is probably, besides, like you said, besides Kansas City, I think Buffalo is the most difficult place to play in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah,
that's our predicts.
Yep. I mean, I know it's not obviously how the predicts would usually go this year. I know there wasn't really a whole lot to discuss on the Cavs. I know they're down pretty big right now at half, so kind of sucks, but
it's expected.
Dude, like you can't expect to win games. I get really tired of the fans, especially when they get mad when we have games like this. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, you guys just need to get over it.
We can't win every game. I mean, look at the Boston Celtics. They're 7 of 7 in their last 14 games.
Yeah.
They're I think it's like 3 of their last 5.
Yeah.
7 of 7 in the last 14. So they're not playing good ball either.
No.
And again, you happen to be playing OKC at OKC. That's, again, It's not going to be an easy place to play, even if they're missing Chet and if they're missing Hartenstein and a couple others. I mean, those are the only two that are actually missing.
Right.
But even still, Shea is MVP as of right now.
He had 26 points at halftime.
Yeah, I mean, he's dogging on us. He's hit every shot he's thrown up has just fallen. So
I mean, they're shooting like 60% from the field. I think they're shooting like 52% from three. I think we're shooting 30% from three. We're shooting bad right now. Yeah. I think Garland is the only one that's been pretty good. He's like 6 of 8 at halftime.
He had he started off the game.
A lot of shots.
Yeah, so for Garland, he started off the game really slow, like Mitchell. But in the second quarter, he scored 13 of his 15 points in the second quarter. So Darius Garland, started to kind of just go off in that second quarter.
Yeah.
But as of right now, the Cavs are shooting 42% right now and 30% from three. The Thunder are shooting 61% from the field, 58% from three. So altogether, they're just shooting 60% everywhere. They're not missing shots.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
They're making everything. So it's hard to beat a team when they're making everything. Especially too, because the Cavs started to make a slight comeback.
Right.
Where they went down by like 15, but then after that they just started trading baskets again with OKC, and it's like, okay, well now you're fucked because you can't just go and trade baskets now.
Right.
So it's gonna be a tough one, but
but
it is what it is. Like you said, we can't win every single game. We can't, and this is probably everyone's finals preview right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if so, that's gonna be a dogfight. That's gonna be a dogfight.
It's gonna be a massive fight.
So yeah, anyways, that is going to do it for us. We will see you guys on Monday at 7:30 for anybody that does tune into the live stream, obviously, for the Ohio State versus Notre Dame national championship game, baby. I'm so excited. You're going to see us duked out on Ohio State gear and everything. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. We hope to see you guys then. See you guys later.